Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin, Mr. President, by thanking Ambassador Gianni, President of the Security Council, for presenting the Council's annual report to the General Assembly contained in document A/74/2. Mr. President, the United Nations Charter prescribes that the General Assembly will consider the annual and special reports of the Security Council, and that in carrying out its duties for the maintenance of international peace and security, the Council, and I quote, acts on behalf of members of the United Nations. While the report provides a useful compendium of the Council's deliberations, it does not, unfortunately, illuminate on the measures the Council decided upon or has taken to maintain international peace and security. Nor does the skeletal information provided enable the General Assembly to consider these measures and the way in which they were taken. Since the Council acts on behalf of the UN membership, it should provide full information on the Council's proceedings and decision-making processes. Mr. President, the deficiency of information is further compounded by the lack of transparency measures and accountability in the Council's work. The report, unfortunately, validates a number of concerns of member states. The Council's real work in decision-making takes place behind closed doors. Member states directly concerned with the dispute or conflict are not allowed to participate in the Council's deliberations or properly consulted. The role of non-members has been further emasculated in the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. This role has been reduced to the perfunctory submission of written statements. The Council's encroachment on the mandates and jurisdiction of other principal organs, in particular the General Assembly and the ECOSOC, continues unchecked. Mr. President, the Security Council's work on counter-terrorism needs urgent reform. The Council has focused on combating Al-Qaeda and ISIS and their associates. Meanwhile, terrorism has proliferated across the world. The Council has ignored terrorism by extremist and fascist organizations, including the Hindutva groups terrorizing Muslims. It has allowed the labels of terrorism to compromise the legitimate struggles of peoples under colonial and alien domination for self-determination. It has ignored state terrorism, which is used for oppressing and brutalizing peoples under military occupation. Mr. President, the working of non-United Nations entities has been utilized by a minority of countries on the Council to develop their own soft laws and to impose these on unrepresented target countries through Chapter 7 resolutions. Mr. President, importantly, through its various presidential notes, and in particular Note 507 of 30 August 2017, the Council has resolved to implement a set of reform measures. These are still awaited. A comprehensive reform of the Security Council is essential to provide it greater legitimacy and credibility. This must go beyond improvements in its operating processes. Openness, transparency, and inclusiveness should be introduced in its working modalities especially on the work relating to sanctions committees and those dealing with generic issues such as terrorism and non-proliferation, which are of direct concern to the general membership. Mr. President, the key to enhancing the Council's credibility and legitimacy is to induct greater democracy in its structures and processes. Expanding the number of non-permanent members on the Council is vital to enhancing its representativeness and reducing the dominance of the permanent members. On the other hand, adding new permanent members will further paralyze the Council and further erode the principles of sovereign equality and equity among UN member states. Mr. President, the Council has also been found wanting in the implementation of its own resolutions and decisions. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute is a case in point. The Security Council, through its resolutions, has decided that the final disposition of the state of Jammu and Kashmir will be made in accordance with the will of the people, expressed through the democratic method of a free and impartial plebiscite conducted under the auspices of the United Nations. Yet, for over 70 years, India has illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir in blatant violation of the resolutions of the Security Council. It is perpetrating a reign of terror in a territory occupied with 900,000 troops. It has imposed a complete siege on 8 million Kashmiris in the valley and is perpetrating massive violations of human rights against them and against its own minority communities. In the wake of its illegal and unilateral actions of 5 August 2019, the BJP RSS government is putting in place what they have themselves called the final solution for Jammu and Kashmir: demographic flooding of occupied Kashmir by settler communities to completely disempower and disenfranchise the Kashmiri people and to obliterate their Muslim identity and the Muslim identity of the territory. Mr. President, during the last 1 year, the Council has met thrice to consider the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Paragraph 72 of the Council's report recognizes that the Council meeting took place on 16 August 2019 on Jammu and Kashmir. These meetings have confirmed the illegality of the Indian actions of 5 August 2019 and reaffirmed the disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir, as well as underlined the imperative for a final settlement of the dispute in accordance with Security Council resolutions. The international community cannot succeed in its efforts to strengthen conflict prevention and promote Pacific dispute settlement if the Security Council's own resolutions are held in abeyance willfully. What is at stake is both the Council's credibility as well as the objective of durable peace in our region of South Asia. I hope that the Council will not fail this test. I thank you, Mr. President.